Good afternoon. This is Noni from Enhanced Life Psychology, and I'm coming to you today to have a little bit of a chat about the brain and trauma and EMDR. So I was told about I found out about this really cool little toy from Kmart from a number of other psychologists, and I'm going to flip my camera to show you what it is. So it's this little toy of the brain, and it sort of comes apart and comes together, but I thought I'd just show you the parts of the brain. So this orange section is the frontal lobe. Then we have the parietal lobe, the occipital lobe, and the temporal lobe. And in here we have the inside of the brain, and this purple bit here is the cerebellum. So when we look at this, the frontal lobe, and the very front of that is the prefrontal cortex, is all about how we think, our judgment, our planning, impulse control, those sorts of things. The parietal lobe, which is this next bit here, this blue bit, or the green bit, which you can see on here, is the sensory processing and sort of gives us direction. So that's the parietal. The occipital lobe down here is all about vision and visual processing. Then this pink bit here is the temporal lobe. This is memory, mood, stability, temper, those sorts of things. The cerebellum is all about motor and thought coordination, processing speed and judgment. The inside, we've got the basal ganglia. Okay, so I'm back. So the anterior cingulate gyrus is all about shifting attention. And then we have the inside, the amygdala and limbic areas, right in the centre of the brain. They set the emotional tone involved in mood and bonding. So I'm going to flip the camera around. So if we think about the brain like this, and all these little bits of the brain and how important they are, and they're all integrated. So they don't work alone. So they all integrate with each other, and there's lots of communication between all of the parts of the brain. And what happens when we experience trauma is the processing of the brain, how the brain works, and the activity in the brain changes. So that inside, that middle part of the brain, the cingulate gyrus, the basal ganglia, the amygdala, these bits, which are very important in setting our mood and managing our mood and managing how we respond to things. So that alertness, they're very important when it comes to setting off our fight, flight, freeze response. And what can happen when we experience trauma is that part of the brain and how it operates changes. So I'm going to show you. So these are some images, they're SPECT images of brains before treatment. So this is a PTSD brain. So someone who's experienced PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and this is how the brain activity looks like. So it's all that base part of the brain is highly active, which can indicate hypersensitivity to emotions. Then we have this part of the brain, which is after treatment, so after the PTSD treatments have been managed, and you can see that the brain, the activity looks quite different. So for someone with PTSD, it's how their brain responds to stimuli, how we might respond to triggers that might remind us of that particular traumatic experience. And that can all change, so we then keep responding to various triggers that aren't actually related, intimately related to the event, or they might just be a little reminder, a sound, a sensation, an image, a sensation on their body, or it might be a place, or a smell. Smell is a very powerful sense. So when our brain is responding to these triggers, we experience trauma responses. So one of the things that I do is when I'm working with people who have experienced trauma, is to use EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization reprocessing. So it's all about, it's a bilateral stimulation. So stimulating each side of the brain in quick succession while you're thinking about an image of relating to a traumatic experience. What it does is it challenges this working memory, and it reprocesses and reorders how our brain remembers these experiences. So it doesn't change the memory, it changes how we respond to that memory. And that's incredibly important. So that image of the brain, the before and the after, they've had EMDR treatment or some other intense trauma treatment to get to that point where their brain is not responding in the same way as the trauma brain. And so EMDR is well researched, lots of evidence suggesting that it is extremely effective for treating trauma. I also use it with anxiety. I have used it with performance, so helping people to do things in the future that they really want to do. And everyone's response to it is quite different, but it can be very helpful. And speaking to a therapist who uses EMDR and has an understanding of it can give you an understanding of whether this might be helpful for you, and then you can explore going on this journey with your therapist, psychologist or a mental health social worker, or sometimes psychiatrists do EMDR as well, and engaging in that, or a mental health OT. So these practitioners who've had extensive training in EMDR can help you reprocess your trauma and help you maybe perform better in events. So if you have to go on stage or have to go to a sporting event. So this is what EMDR can help you with. So I'm going to, and it can help people if they've experienced trauma, that they can go and do the things that trauma memories might be stopping them doing. And when they remember the trauma, they don't have those intense trauma experience, responses, emotional responses or physical responses. The memory is still there. It's just as if it was in the past. So like if you remember something that happened when you're a child and it was quite a pleasant memory, you remember it, oh, that was nice, but you don't feel it as if it's here and now. So that's what EMDR can help with. So I'm going to leave it there, and if you're looking for more information on this, definitely send me a message or jump online and do a Google search for EMDR. Check out the EMDR Association of Australia or EMDR Association of America. They have very good information about EMDR. You'll also find some good reputable websites out there from practitioners who have good information about it. So I'll catch you another time. See you.